Bobby, what is discernment?
Saw hello to you too.
Hit it.
I remember years ago I heard I love the entomology not entomology's bugs. Etymology is like what words mean. And years ago I remember learning that discernment is like discern, you could break it into an older word which meant agony.
Mm.
Like if you discern, it was kind of like you're in a wrestling hold. Like you are in agony, you are in this kind of pinned, like Jacob and the angel almost. And I was like, that sums it up for me, who's a bit more of a melancholic, an introvert, and can get really deep and wanting God to just like tell me and just map it out for me easily. It's like this is agony, which is it was good that I married a very happy-go-lucky, childlike woman to balance it out. But agony,
I've actually never heard that, and it's funny because like that's clearly been my experience. Like there's actually been nothing really glamorous about discernment. I do remember times where like it was a thing at one point, at least like in the digital realms, to talk about like let's stop like discerning things and just like do it, you know?
hmm
And I feel like I've always been more of an active discerner. Like I just go and do the thing and then I find out, oh, that wasn't for me. Let's dive a little bit more into like a biblical notion of discernment. Like you wrote a book on this. I think it was with your wife. Um, and I knew that was really impactful for a lot of people. And even I remember reading it like, wow, Bobby's pretty good at writing. Like this is decent stuff. Um, but I think in today's world when like through media, through the digital, we're getting bombarded with so much advice, right? And even to a certain degree, like this is advice we're maybe giving. So we're gonna try and get like meta, not the company, but like above the ideas that are shared online. Like, how do we undertake like a biblical understanding of discernment? Because it's one thing to live in the world, and it's one thing to just choose multiple goods, but when we're bringing God into the picture, like what are a few ways people can start to navigate like discernment with God? Because to me that looks different, right?
right. 'Cause I think the trap is it's me on an island trying to figure it out on my own. So yeah, my wife and I wrote a book, Pray, Decide, and Don't Worry with Ascension years ago. Co-wrote it with Father Mike Schmitz, small guy. You may not have heard of him ever.
I've heard of him, yeah.
He's ruggedly handsome.
Yeah.
When I taught at an all boys high school, yeah, I had freshman boys that were like, "Mr. Angel, I get lost in his eyes." I said, "We all do, kid. We all do." We co-wrote that with him before Bible in a year, like pre-COVID, like just which just feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
And that was the book that was my bucket list book. Like before I die, I need to write a book on what has helped me.
Hmm.
So at that point, I was married. We had a couple kids. We have five now. Um, we only had two, maybe three when we wrote that book. No, I think two. And like on the other side of finding my vocation and where the Lord had me was like I know that agony and I want to give a resource to people that are in it. What I wish I would have had when I was 20, 21. So that's this book, Pray, Decide, and Don't Worry. And it's beautiful to hear how many people it's helped, that the Lord has um helped give them some encouragement or even words of comfort. And we wrote it in a very open-ended way where it could be discerning a job, it could be, big V vocation, like the thing that we all freak out about. Could just be like, I don't know what to do. I'm at a crossroads here in life. I'm not sure where to go. And what I said, how I started answering the question was the trap is we're trying to figure it out on our own and keep it in our own head. And the biblical view would be invite the Lord in, as overly simplistic as that sounds. It is having to find the time for silence and listening to that still small voice. It is stealing away time with the Lord. Jesus is constantly trying to get away from people. He was probably he was the most integrated of human persons ever. aside our Blessed Mother. But I think he was an introvert in that he was constantly trying to get away from people. And
Kind
people
of
kept
funny to think
following
about.
him. Yeah, people kept following him. I also just think he knew the importance of prayer and would wake up early, like before the dawn, to spend time with the Father. So I think a gut check question could be: am I trying to solve this on my own, or am I really giving space to listen to the Lord? And we could go a few different directions with this because it's his time. It's not necessarily my time. It's sometimes the slow. I my first rector in the seminary, because I discerned the priesthood for a couple of years, he would say, formation is in the stretch. It's
Hmm.
in the stretching. It's in, I am stretched beyond my comfort zone, beyond my patience. I want it when I want it. Just like a muscle only grows when it's stretched further out beyond what it's used to, so too the Lord wants our souls like stretched out and to enter more deeply into the ache and the longing, because it's so easy to also make this stuff an idol. Like we make vocation the idol. We make what we're discerning the idol, instead of, it's about union with the Lord. Like that's the common end we're all hope, like we want to seek, and we all worship other things along the way. But it's just so easy to put second, third, and fourth things first instead of first things first. And then we wonder why we're off kilter and we're anxious and we're seeking the things in an upside down way.
Yeah. So the first thing to do is to listen to God. Bobby, genius. I mean, really, who would have thunk?
It takes a PhD to be so stupid. So
That's right. Okay, well, that's very helpful. And the funny thing is like that's incredibly hard to do, right? Like there's actually a lot of things pushing against you to get that first step in place, which is to kind of just like get you in the game. Like I remember my first summer right after like a student conference had my conversion, prayer was like so exciting. And then like you get in there and it's like my ADHD is like raging, and I'm like, how did these people do this? Like focus in prayer. And then it's like, oh, 15 years later, like I still can't focus. And maybe the mindfulness thing with CP map will help. I haven't done my mindfulness training yet. Um, but it's like, man, that's a tough, that itself is incredibly difficult. So let's just say, okay, someone's like, okay, Bobby, I'm gonna start listening to God. What's that next step when you're in prayer?
um, put on the nearest Father Mike Schmidt's podcast and just let his soft baritone comfort you. Uh,
We're gonna have to send in this
it's
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, sponsored by Father Mike Schmitz. Silence is tough, and I in the seminary we would do like silent retreats periodically, where they would be 1 day, 3 day. The longest I did was 5 days
Yeah,
without
same.
talking to people. They have 8 day formats, they have 30 day formats, and as a dad of five, I'm like, oh, I wish I had a silent retreat again.
Hmm.
But I would go in kicking and screaming, because it was no, like, the no talking thing was great. I could do that all day, but it was no media, no music. I love my soundtracks. And um yeah, just opening up that space to listen. And I think we have now less attention span than a goldfish.
That's
Is that
correct.
right? So you talk about the ability to sit still with yourself and just be, like, that's a hurdle already, how anxious we get. And so you talk about like what muscle needs to stretch. Is to mindfully sitting still is, I mean, that's a hurdle in and of itself. But to know too, the Lord is meeting us in the struggle. He sees what this generation, like what we're up against. And where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. Like, to the extent we've attached ourselves to certain devices, um, or problematic stuff on the internet. I don't know how specific you want to get, but people know what I'm talking about. Um, it is a struggle to sit and be still, but there too is the still small voice and the being still. And so if we, again, going from zero to sitting still, this is where we need good spiritual reading. So whether that is the Bible, which we say is living and true, it's not just a dead encyclopedia. The word still speaks to us. So scripture, picking up the Psalms or the New Testament and just saying, Lord, help me to enter your word, speak to me, help me to sit with a particular story or passage. You know, there's spiritual writers like Peter Kraft, who, I mean, you just read one paragraph and you've got
My
enough
boy.
to, or Fulton Sheen, who's on the way to being blessed. Like his writings are just so easily digestible. Or even the C.S. Lewis, you know, just bring one of his books to the chapel and let what needs to pierce you as a starting point, and then put the book down. Because I'm also the guy that brings a stack of books to the chapel and would rather read about Jesus than actually be with Jesus. So I have to stop myself from just using it as reading me time. And Lord, what do you want to say to me? Because it's the same thing of like, if you pick up the phone and you're talking to a friend and you're just talking at them the whole time, but I never actually ask, you know, Andrew, how are you doing? What's going on in your life? Then one, the friendship's going to die because you're going to get exhausted by that real quick. But also we do that with God. We just talk at God, or we just treat him like a
Mm.
genie or a Santa Claus. And then we just click at the phone off. And some of it, you know, I'll say this. Some of it is maybe even just a fear of I'm afraid of what the Lord might say. I'm afraid of what I might be challenged to do. So I'm not going to give him space to speak. So sometimes my avoidance of silence and prayer is fear, and also how that might make sense based on my story. I don't know if I can trust God. I'm afraid he's going to take something away from me, or ask me to be someone that I don't think I am. And so we can keep it at an arm's length.
Yeah, and I think of Dr. Arthur Brooks' idea of the complicated versus the complex, right? The complicated is like the hemispheric lateralization they talk about all the time. Like the left brain is more analytical, more systematic, the right sided brain more mysterious. You know, that's where you discover meaning and purpose. And to me, discernment in my own life, which is still like largely unanswered questions, has been way more complex than complicated. Like, you know, once you're doing the prayers, you know, you're going from the purgative to the illuminative to the unitive. I'm like for sure in the purgative still. Like, there's no way I'm out of that yet.
I'm
But
mowing
like,
the lawn outside of the first mansion.
that's right. That's right. I am outside that door. But it's like, yeah, you would think that these systems, because I do remember thinking, okay, like I'm making the time. I'm going to the sacraments. I'm doing the novenas. I'm fighting the good fight. I'm failing at pretty much everything, but I'm getting back up. And you kind of think that this whole discernment thing is going to be really clean cut and a step-by-step process. So like, you know, your story was pretty different too, how you went from, you know, seminary to your vocation. Like that wasn't a normal trajectory, like even your, you know, past prior to that. So share a little bit of that journey, because I do think it matters. But then also to your point, like once you're in the capital V vocation, like everything isn't all of a sudden just perfect. And I think it's easy like me not having that. I think it's really easy to really believe, like there's a part of me, if we're speaking in parts, that really does believe like, wow, when this thing gets answered, and all these years of waiting and discernment and seminary and messed up relationships and no one wants to date me and none of these are working out, like it's just going to be better. Like everything's just going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and in some sense, like when you are living out your vocation, there are things that are fulfilled. So I don't think we can deny it completely, like either extreme, right? It's like there's things that are going to be satisfied and fulfilled, and it's going to be amazing, whether that's celibacy in the priesthood or religious life, or, in marriage. But these are still really complex experiences that I don't feel like the church gives enough, or at least people in the church like give enough like power to the mystery of this, right? So anyway, speak a little bit of your own kind of journey into your vocation, because I do think it's worth hearing, like your 2 minute
My
story.
2 minute one in the
Yeah,
beginning.
give,
I had
give
a
me
friend
give me the two.
I had a friend Morgan who told me years ago, he's like, Bobby, you have lived life. And I said, I agree. Because on paper it doesn't make much sense. Like I was a lifeguard for many summers. I
Yeah,
was a firefighter and EMT
yeah.
before realizing I couldn't run away from the priest question on my heart, which had been plaguing me since I started undergrad.
Hmm.
And I feel like the Lord beckoning me to follow him in priestly discernment. 3 years of seminary formation before I discerned I think God's calling me to be married after all. And lo and behold, I meet a beautiful blonde woman who likes me back. And um,
How old were
so
you
this
guys?
we first met when I was 26 ish, and then we re-met when I was 27, around there, I think, or 28.
Crazy.
And it just was like, at last, finally, at banging my head against the wall for years. It just, when God's like, all right, you're ready now. Like he can move very slow, but God can move very fast when he wants to, and things can fall into place very quickly. And I got a job at a all boys Catholic high school. I was a campus minister and theology teacher for almost 10 years. And we've relocated to Texas. I got connected with the Catholic Psych Institute, and I've been mentoring. I got trained in their program, which blends counseling and spiritual direction with this applied personalism model based on JP2. And I've been mentoring people now for, I guess, coming up on 3 years, which is all these threads. They're very random, but they all connect with that desire to help people. And it went from physically helping people in lifeguarding, firefighter, to spiritually helping people in seminary and in teaching. And now it's kind of just like all blend together. So it's like the Lord knows my heart better than I knew it. And so a lot of these things look pretty random, but I can see that nothing's been wasted in the eyes of God. Um, and I was thinking too of Frassati, Pier Giorgio Frassati, and Carlo Acutis, two very recent saints in our church, both of who were not in a vocation.
Great point.
And that too is what I mean. Like the call is to holiness. Like that's the universal call, because we also we don't know how many years we have on this earth. Carlo died at age of 15 of really advanced leukemia. Pier Giorgio died of polio, like contracted from serving the poor. It died at the age of 24. This strapping young mountaineer. So we've got two guys that weren't in a vocation proper, but are literally now saints. So that's what I mean about the temptation to idealize and worship the vocation and put ourselves like in like making ourselves neurotic about figuring that out, instead of, Lord, am I showing up to you? Am I loving you? Am I letting you love me? And letting that be enough. And then let the journey unfold. Let it be a mystery to be lived, not a problem to be solved. And there is something to, like, when you do, for those of us called into these vocations of marriage, of celibacy, there is an at last, like, finally, thank God, like, I'm here. I get to be out of the dating pool finally. Like, there is God willing, there's a security and a steadiness and a peace. But then there is also like, oh, this isn't the end. Like, this is the next chapter where my problems don't go away. There's even more brought to the surface. I can't run and hide. Someone else is going to see, especially in marriage, someone else is going to see all my ish. And I'm going to see their stuff. And that is also the grace of the sacrament, is you were shoulder to shoulder figuring this out together, hopefully inviting the Lord into it. And so there is you've arrived, but there's still also the not yet, because no earthly person can satisfy you. That's why celibacy, like this, the joyful celibate, is like skips over the marriage piece, because marriage is the icon of God's love. It's not the idol. It's not the end. It's um, the image. And so the joyful celibate is saying marriage is a great good, sex is a great good, but I'm going to skip over that to show the world there's something better when there is no marriage in heaven, because we're all face to face with the Lord. And this, my wife and I have given talks on this because people get sad about that. Like, we're not going to be married in heaven. Like, we're not going to need the signpost when we're there. But I'm going to see, God willing, I'm going to see and know and love my wife in a more pure and better way than I ever could here on earth, and vice versa. So I think there's the romantic, like, oh, it's sad, we're not going to be married, but it's like, we're not going to need to be, because it's going to be the fulfillment of all desire.
Yeah, it's so different from like a secular, reductionistic, materialistic worldview of human relations. It is interesting when you really get rid of the supernatural in relationships. Man, it really gets twisted and weird quick. And it gets really weird and twisted even within Christian couples, right? It's like
Sure.
it's not like all of a sudden because you bring God into it, it's just perfect. It's like it's actually like more difficult because you're being called on to a standard of holiness that is supernatural. Like you need grace and you need the sacraments. I want to go back to a little bit. I was with you during that time you were working with young men, and that's a lot of who I'm coaching now in my coaching business. And I was just thinking, like, what were things that guys were struggling with then that you could speak to that probably young men are struggling with now? Like, the purity issue is like one thing, but maybe let's get like a little broader. Like, what were you know other experiences that young men were going through during all those years you work with them that you look back and you're like, wow, that was a really consistent theme. And then maybe speak to some of the ways that you helped mentor guys through that.
Yeah, you were living with us for a couple of those years where I was teaching and working at this school, and it smelled awful. It was grungy. It was all guys. Like, you didn't care. You didn't notice it
I
until you went
I showered.
until
I showered
you showered. But some of these
sometimes.
boys, there's no girls. So, hygiene was kind of optional, especially for the freshmen. And I saw, yeah, aside like issues with technology and pornography, and I mean, just that we're all drowning in it. But I also saw a lot of fatherlessness.
Hmm.
I saw a lot of moms send their sons to this particular school in the hopes of having some good masculine role models. So I saw a lot of, just when you've been in ministry for a while, you'll see some of these wounds a mile away of what a person's carrying, of what a person's got a chip on their shoulder about, and uh, just the desire for validation. Like, am I good? Am I lovable? Am I only good when I get straight A's? Am I only good if I get into that college? Or even guys that had their identity so wrapped up in their, and I think this is maybe for all of us, like a necessary purgation to go through when we get our identity wrapped up in something else. So for a lot of guys, it was sports, or I'm a musician, or I'm a robot nerd, or I'm a whatever. What happened? Who are you when that thing gets taken away? So for the athletes,
Yeah.
especially, you get injured. I have these football guys that live and breathe and worship football, but then you get injured, your ACL's torn, you can't play. Who are you? Or guys that dedicated every waking hour to a sport and then they don't get recruited to the college they want to go to. Like, who am I that I didn't get this thing? So I also saw like some really fruitful conversations in some of the more um, mature 17, 18-year-olds who were willing to like wrestle with that stuff. Who am I without my sport? Who am I without my hobby that I've made my identity? And that, if you meet a young person in that space, it's so beautiful because that can open up the vista to the God questions. And what's my bigger purpose in life? Is it just to entertain myself to death? Is it just to make money? Like, what am I really here for? So the stuff that maybe they could repeat it back for a test, like who is God? What is the church about? But it's just, it never has really gone from here to the heart. Like those times of brokenness, um, or even just like the really crappy moments where like my dad didn't write me a letter for this retreat, like those hurts that you are privileged to sit with guys in, the disconnect and the hurt and the rage of divorce, or um like those were really blessed moments I was able to walk with certain guys in.
Yeah, that's super deep. The funny, like while you're sharing all that, I was just thinking, oh, that's like pretty much all adult men. It's like, it's the job, like it's okay, the girl, it's how much money, it's your body now, like the looks maxing thing. Like I don't really know a lot of
Yeah.
these internet things that are happening, but I'm interested in more of the like sociological phenomena of them. And it does just kind of seem like, young men in general are doing bad. Everyone talks about it. There's a ton of data on it. Multiple different sectors of, living the American life today. Young men are struggling in the workplace, in school, mental health, suicidality, mass shootings. Like there's clearly
Well,
mul-
loneliness and just able to
right,
make friends.
right. But I think one of the points that you hit to me that was like really interesting, because to me it just applies to like literally all guys like today. And it's funny, you hear some of these guys, like even like a Scott Galloway, talking about some of these things being a little bit more vulnerable, but, sharing their own journey of like being workaholics. And I mean, I actually feel like, at least the last couple of years, like, man, I feel the workaholic thing like powerfully. Like I can really see that sucking me in. And it does seem like that time in life where that's maybe a bigger temptation than others, but maybe let's make this a little bit more broad, specifically to this point, like you shared, like, am I good enough? Like to me, that was like maybe because that's like a question I've had. But also when certain things have been taken away, in my own life, like when I went to seminary, like all of my life on stages was done, and I remember like being really excited about that. But it was like, oh yeah, who am I when I'm not doing this thing? So for any men, young men listening, like when they're not on the field, when they're not making the money, when they're maybe not at the body jackness that they want, like name the thing. What's like what's like the next step to start to understand your goodness? Like how would you help that young man start to understand that like he is very good?
Well, yeah. Man, and it's so client specific. It's so person specific. It's so like, what's this guy's story? So that's actually where I would start. And I remember I was in seminary with a friend who's now a priest, and he would always roll his eyes at the wounds. He's like, "Oh, my dad, yada yada." Like this is, oh, enough about the wounds. And I got it. Like there was just the kind of like the temptation to like, are we overly focused on therapy and being
Mm-hmm.
victims and all this stuff? And but the longer I'm in the field of ministry and helping, I just like, no, it does. It does go back to childhood over and over again. Is because that's our first school of love, as JP2 called it. And maybe it wasn't it was a school of great dysfunction. Maybe
Hmm.
home was not a safe place. Maybe it was a school of emptiness. Like, what was our first imprint of love? And was it conditional? Was it, I give you the time of day when you achieve? I'll show up to your games. I'll only show up to your games. Like I'll only give you a nod, or if you get straight A's. And so like, what was your first memories of love and affection? Like, was it conditional? Was it achievement oriented? Because that's going to set the template for, well, we naturally are just going to put that onto God. Like, God is Father, what does that even mean? Like, I'm going to, at some level, project my experience of fatherhood or motherhood onto that and be like, yeah, dad was checked out, so I assume God's not really there. Or God or dad was abusive or verbally abusive, and it was led by fear. So I'm sure God's just waiting to punish me if I screw up. So there's in the church, like there's a lot of scrupulosity. There's a lot of fear based. It's a fear based faith. I don't want to go to hell, or I got to do enough rosaries, or I got to do enough to warrant my existence. So I would first just kind of because you hear like what's your God image? Because again, I could repeat the right answer from the catechism.
Yeah,
God is a
right.
Trinity, God is love, but really like those parts of us, like what's in your heart? Like, and one of the the retreats I ran and that you helped with from time to time, Elab, was one of the talks was dedicated to this, was the um the misconceptions of God.
Oh yeah.
Is
Yeah.
God a Santa, like to you, is God a Santa Claus? Is he like a cop? Is he just a fun uncle that just lets me get away with whatever? Like what when I think of God in the heart level, what am I imagining? Old guy with a beard, not really there, doesn't really care. Like just all that stuff you got to name first, because that's going to be the backdrop of, and now I'm in this story. There's a lot of models of therapy now like that lead into like narrative therapy, like seeing myself in a story. And um like what's my story, what's in the backdrop, what's in the family, because that's going to help or hurt my ability to see like, am I good just as I am? Which a lot of guys it's not. Or even just the cultural waters we've drank of, I can't show weakness, I can't show vulnerability,
Yeah.
I can't ask for help. So I just have a lot of stuff that's bottled up. And maybe I'm externally mature as a man. I've got all these trappings. I've got this car or this suit or this salary, but I feel still like a scared 14-year-old on the inside.
Yeah. I want to
Which
go.
is, as you said that, like my wife and I, we've long done ministry for youth and teens and young adults, and we still love doing that. But we're getting older, a little more gray, so we're doing more marriage events, even like some legatus events, which are older demographics in the church. And
Oh yeah, I've
it's
done those.
it's intimidating because it's like, what am I going to say to people older than me or people that have been married 20, 30, 40 years? Uh, but it's the same wounds. It's the same chasing my dad's love. It's the same, does anyone care? Maybe if I achieve my way, God will let me in. Like it's the same stuff from when we're 14 to when we're 47 to 87.
Yeah, let's dive into this question. I think about this a lot, and even as I'm in the CP map training, I'm in all of these different lectures and learning, and I'm like loving it, right? Like it's blowing my mind. There's like a whole nother layer of healing God's doing within me that is like super painful and also like necessary. But I do want to address this, and I actually just would love your take on this. Like there is clearly an over-therapeutic vision of the human person when you're constantly just watching TikTok and Instagram and YouTube shorts on 5 things to look for in a narcissist, like 10 things to do in your relationship, like 5 things, like it's completely overwhelming. And, Dr. Cardaris has done, a lot of work on this space and the social contagion effect with literally TikTok Tourette's syndrome, like social contagion, mental health disorders being passed via a screen, like real diagnosable disorders that after 4 weeks of being removed, those symptoms dissipate, which if they were actually real clinical diagnoses, they wouldn't just dissipate in 4 weeks when you remove the stimulus, right?
Yeah, it's
So
the mimesis.
there's something clearly true that we are, and this is maybe more of an Abigail Schreier idea too, like we're overly turning to the therapeutic vision of the human person, like everything's trauma, everything's childhood trauma, and then the other extreme of like it's all bad, like no one should ever go to therapy. I feel like there's a middle ground, and I want to dive into that. Like, how do you help? And again, I think the funny thing is like I can kind of I can kind of know your answer. It's like it's going to be probably person to person, like individual, like going into their story. But let's dive into this because I do think this matters. I do think the amount of information we're engaging in these different platforms, it's mimicking therapy. It's not you diving into your story. You're watching someone share, and they might be a PhD, an MD, and a psychiatrist or whatever. But I don't think that's actually the same as like going through and doing the work and increasing your emotional intelligence, going through parts work. So maybe give me a little bit of maybe just the sense how you've been kind of marrying these two ideas and like how do we find that healthy middle ground?
We could do another hour on this.
I
Because yeah,
like
I read
really I like really easy, simple questions. I don't know if you've noticed that.
No, I love it. Sit back and relax. Get your
Enjoy the
coffee
ride,
out.
folks.
I've read Abigail Schreier's her two books. The first book was about what the transgender craze was doing to girls,
Hmm.
and that was bold and really well written. And from a non-religious perspective, just calling out the social contagion aspect. The second book was Bad Therapy, which it was a mixed bag in my sense. Like she was getting on some good things, but also throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and almost wanting to go back to kind of a boomer Gen X, like just suck it up, just don't talk about this stuff, just get on with it. And I think there is also like a trying to find grit, good sense of like, yeah, we need to toughen up our kids, and not everyone gets a trophy. Her second book though was like looking at therapy just from the lens of like what it's done to kids and
Hmm.
extrapolating it to the whole population. And I'll say too, there's something to be said for a therapy model that is just overly focused on the self. It's just about me. And it's just about affirming whatever I want and just speaking to be heard, but it's not really going anywhere. And this is where we need the objective and the subjective. And so the subjective is the person. Like I need to have my experience be heard and what I'm going through. But I also need an objective. Where am I going? Where am I supposed to go? What is my purpose? Is it just me making it up? And that's kind of like the postmodern situation we're in right now, is that there is no truth. It's just everyone has their own little my truth versus your truth. It's like, no, there is a truth. There is something out there, and there is a north and a south, and there is a direction I should go in. If I'm a man or if I'm a woman and I been made in the image and likeness of God, then there is a blueprint to follow. But we can only find ourselves by being a gift of ourselves. A young John Paul II, who was bishop at the time, Kirill Wojtyla, who was at the Second Vatican Council, had that, what was part of penning that line in the document Gaudium et Spes. Man can only find himself by being a gift of himself. Like we can only find ourselves in relationship to another person, which is why I gotta talk. I gotta talk to someone. I can't just keep it all bottled up in my head and think I'm gonna be okay, I'm gonna get fixed. I can get great insight from a podcast or from a book or a video. But in terms of knowing myself, like I need to process with another person. I need to be heard. And God can do all things, of course. And I've seen guys get healed. Like I've seen stuff happen just cold turkey, like just being able to walk away from an
Yeah,
addiction
it's
or
a
a
grace.
problematic habit. It's grace. But the normal mode is I need community. I'm made for communion. I'm made for others. And whether that's kind of like a 12-step environment or finding a trusted mentor or spiritual director or counselor who has a foot in the will of God. So it's not just us going in circles around myself. It's where ought I be going? Because as men, especially, we'll keep stuff bottled up in our heads and we'll try to figure it out and put the IKEA furniture together by ourselves and then wonder why we're getting frustrated. It says we need other people. And so one of my favorite comments when I'm working with clients is when they'll say, as I say this out loud, and it could go either way. Like, as I say this out loud, isn't as scary as I thought? Or as I say this out loud, oh wow, a part of me really does think this or believe that. Oh, that's pretty deep in there. And it's we need to be accompanied. And I've had amazing mentors, priests, core members, people that gave me the time of day, people that heard me out in my questions, in my venting, and my just kind of going in circles in my own discernment throughout the years. And so I feel now a blessed, I'm still a work in progress, but I still feel a blessed responsibility to give back and to walk with people. Um, yeah, I love the work that we get to do because, yeah, it's like we cannot grope our way out of the cave on our own. There is that American like Lone Ranger whole thing of like, I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to be a lone wolf. But like the lone wolf is the one who's been kicked out. Like the lone wolf is not the hero. He's like, there's the strength in the tribe.
Yeah, literally everything you have right now, even in your room and your house, the carpet I'm standing on, this microphone, this computer, the road I just drove here on the car, like that was all built by other people. You know, like your day to day, almost everything you do was that supports you and fuels you was done by other people. And as you were sharing that, one thing to me that came to mind, it was like, yeah, that core relationship. But say you don't have money for a therapist or you've had bad experiences in therapy and that's not an option. Like the amazing gift of Catholicism, when it's lived out and when the church is operating as it ought to, right? You're getting community. So you're getting interaction with humans, right? There's people today that don't interact with humans because of our technology. So you go to mass, you're going to probably like look at someone at least at the sign of peace, you know, and get a handshake or something. You know, confession, you're getting to share your sins, like, and hear the words you are forgiven, like, unbelievable. Maybe there's a Bible study, maybe there's a group serving people. It really is amazing if you live out your Catholic faith and the structure the church has in place. Almost every point of it is community relationship based, except for that time of quiet, you know, recollection, which is by yourself. But as you were just sharing that, it's like, dude, isn't it so cool that like most of these things that create resilient human beings like operates within our worldview?
It's incarnational, and we
Yeah,
are our bodies. And I mean, Pope Leo just put out this document, and people are calling it the AI document, but it's about so much more.
for
It's about
sure.
being human, and reclaiming that that we're not just products to be optimized.
Yeah.
We're human persons, which are our flesh, and so this whole like touch grass thing, it makes me laugh because it's funny, but it's
What
true.
is
It's like
that? What is
it's
that?
just kind of like the Gen Z mantra of go outside.
Okay.
You know, get off the devices, like interact with the world, and whether that's we laugh at each other. You and I a lot about grounding,
Yeah.
like shirt off, backyard, just getting the vitamin D, pray tanning. But no,
Been
it's
doing
like
it for
no,
years.
we're meant for that. And I remember again the wackiness of COVID, and just knowing we cannot receive communion through a screen. Like this is not the new normal. Like we're never gonna fit this. And so as much as it is convenient, and so much of work nowadays is online, and you could DoorDash stuff to your house. Like you don't need to leave your house, if you have certain professions, which is a real poverty. And then people
Mhm.
wonder why I'm exhausted, and why I'm globally connected but lonelier than ever. Um, yeah, at the mass, like you are going to interact with people in one way or another. Even babies crying. I remember a priest telling me years ago that the mass is not private prayer. It is messy. There are babies crying and adults glaring at each other, and things are getting dropped, and it's noisy. It's like if you want private prayer, go to your holy hour. But like the mass is messy, and there's a goodness to that. So yeah, like again, we need the both, and the private prayer time and the communal, to be in community, and even just serving. Like I meet a lot of young people who are just kind of isolated, And I'll ask him like, "What? How are you serving? How are you serving? Like, are you doing anything in your 5 mile radius?" Like some of my favorite memories as a young adult were volunteering for the youth group or being in skits or helping to run retreats. And you're naturally going to meet like-minded other young adults in that sphere, but you're giving back. Like there's so many happiness studies, secular atheist studies that it's kind of like serve, and it's like duh,
Oh,
like that's what
totally.
we're made for.
Yeah, and I've had better seasons at that, doing that than others, depending on like, how much I was on the road or um yeah, what my life looks like. Like as a parent, you can't just go do that every day, all day somewhere, but
No, and
you
that's
know,
that's the season of life I'm in too, where it's I'll say like, yeah, you can romanticize marriage and family life, and it is such a great and tremendous good and responsibility, but there's also a bit of the monastery dynamic. There's a bit of like, yeah, my hours, I can't just go out for hours and do whatever I want. I'm not in the season to volunteer at every youth group night or every
yeah.
retreat opportunity. So there's a dying to self, but also knowing that it's just a season of life I'm in that I'm serving in different ways of constantly doing dishes and changing diapers and also just the great and terrible responsibility of once you start to know some of the psychotherapy stuff and the attachment stuff, and then you get your own kids, it's like, oh crap, like I've screwed up so much already.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Yeah, how do you I want to get back to this idea briefly. I thought we touched on it really well of not getting too far into the therapeutic, not getting too far to the complete neglect of the gift of physicians, doctors of the soul, psychologists, psychology. I mean, what are maybe some other ways that people, we kind of went like broad stroke, which I think is helpful because everyone has such different experiences. But I'm just thinking like, okay, say someone's coming out of this like just utter scrolling of all these self-help gurus, right? And it's just overwhelm on all these possible things you could do. Like, what's actually a biblical way for someone to start to get out of maybe the extreme of the overly therapeutic, right? Where like everything, is triggering trauma. Like, is there some way that you've seen with the people you worked with of like how to get out of that navel gazing, that complete obsession with like optimization? I actually loved that in the encyclical. I'm not done with it, but I loved that Pope Leo hit that because I'm kind of like I can dance along that line a little bit of like I'm optimizing everything, bro. Like I'm so optimized right now. My supplements, my routines, like I still keep them, but for me, and it's an attempt to be more human, actually. And I can also see that like I don't really think people need to count their steps every day. Like I think that's also a problem where there's an over optimization. So, what's maybe like one step someone can take that's living in the over optimized, the overly therapeutic, the overly individualistic mindset? Like, what's a good first step?
By Jacques Philippe's little pink book, Searching for and Maintaining Peace.
Great answer, Bobby. Great answer. It's my
Jackie and I
favorite
sell
book.
more. Jackie and I sell more of other people's books than our own. By the way, she's always recommending Bob Schuchts, Be Healed.
But yeah.
I'm always pointing people to Fulton Sheen or Christopher West um, but that little book just packs a punch in the theme of trust. That even in our weakness, even in our limitations, because that I mean, we could expand on this. Like, is all this optimization just a rebellion against the frame of death?
Hmm. Yeah, death
I'm going to
anxiety.
die. Yeah, there's a death anxiety, however hidden, however deep down there of our in our mortality. And I'm all for longevity. I'm all for trying to eat clean and wear your blue light blockers and you look like Cyclops hanging out in our house, Alab.
I've been wearing those for a
But
while.
but we're gonna die. And
Totally.
so it comes back to also the trust. Is God good? And to Jesus says, you must be like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven. And that doesn't mean childish. It's the childlike trust. It's the surrender. And that's not recommended. It's required. You must be like a child. Which a
So
child
good.
trusts. I'm going to surrender. I mean, I stopped wearing a Fitbit because I was getting a little OCD about it. I know
Oh,
people that
same.
would I know people with the Apple Watch that's like, I didn't close my rings. It's like, well, this is causing more anxiety than actually helping your health.
100%.
So, I mean, small step, like what metrics are you not free of? Like, take your supplements, eat, stick to your diet. But is there a rigidity that has set in that is now unhealthy? And to the extent too, I know people that eat so clean and they're so, again, trying to maximize everything, but have zero care for their souls. So I'm very much a guy of the both and work out, try to eat okay, but also how are you loving? How are you giving the time of day to the Lord? How's your soul doing? Because that stuff, we store up treasure in supplements, but are we storing up treasure in heaven?
That's a great t-shirt. I'm going to use that.
You you can clip that for the gram.
Yeah, that's definitely a good short clip. I'm going to see if I can actually not do the shorts thing, but we'll see how long that lasts. I read Searching and Maintaining Peace when I was in Haiti, and a guy named Randy Rouse gave me this book. I was like, you should read this. And I actually saw Jacques Philippe speak in Steubenville once, and I felt like I was watching like John Foreman, like front row. Like I was like, dude, it's Jacques Philippe, bro. Like I would literally share like, what if you're stuck on an island, what books would you bring? It was like I would bring all four of Jacques Philippe's book, like Scroll of the Holy Spirit, Searching and Maintaining Peace, Time for God, and what's the fourth one?
I can't remember.
There's a fourth one. You should get it. I bring all of them. And I think because at the core, that is that's that's it right there. The childlike trust. And really anything that, starts to affect your peace, we really have to take steps towards preserving that peace within us. And, I do ultimately believe like you can look in the money, you can look in the fame, you can look in the pleasure, you can look in the power, but that's all exterior. I do think the superpower of today is to be able to live a life of peace, like an interior peace that no one can take away. I mean, to me, Christianity, psychologically speaking, is the most like wildly, incredibly like resilient idea possible. Like you can get skinned alive, right? And be like, flip me on the other side. Or is that St. Depore's, right? You can be getting burned alive and just say like, flip me.
St.
Like
Lawrence.
St. Lawrence. You could be laughing at death. You could be laughing at these things. I'm definitely not there. Uh, but that book definitely hits a chord with the world. And the reason I remember I watched Jacques Philippe, the joy. That guy was just giggling and laughing and speaking in French. I don't know anything he was saying. And they had a translator. But I do remember the joy that that guy had. And that was really palpable. Um, one closing idea here I want to share, and then I want to hear maybe one word of encouragement. In the thick of discernment, in the thick of discovering if they're good enough, in the thick of trying to get help and figure out their life, and like there's an unbelievable amount of loneliness and pain and things happening. And I do think the church is poised to welcome in a harvest that's going to be plentiful. And I pray that we're ready for it. I don't necessarily think we are, but I hope we will be. Um, I'm thinking of joy, and I'm thinking of a lot of what I hear in CP Map is like the goal is to find those places in your heart and your life where you're not free, right? And to find freedom. Maybe hit just like a little bit, a little taste of some of this parts work. I know that's been impactful for you. It's been super helpful for me. Um, but how can people start to baptize some of that content? Because it's written by a secular psychologist, Richard Schwartz, and we're taking that and putting a little biblical spin on it, and that freaks people out. But we also did that with the organ. The organ was a secular instrument that we baptized. Hate to break it to you folks, all my all my rad trads in the house, like the organ was not used during the time of Jesus. Okay, that was a later development.
You're just stirring the pot here, Andrew.
I'm gonna stir them all up, baby. I love it all. I like the Haitians with the drums. I like chant. I like organ. I like Byzantine. Let's focus, Bobby. Let's get back to parts and freedom and how people can maybe start uh just even that journey of like, I mean, dude, it's terrifying to start to look at some of these things, right?
Oh yeah.
Like it's absolutely terrifying. So share a little bit on that.
Yeah, I've met men who've spent decades running from sitting with themselves, and they just reacting through life and blaming everyone else, or just trying to workaholic their way through life and their faith, and are scared to slow down and are scared to ask these questions. Dr. Jerry Crete wrote a fantastic book called Litanies of the Heart,
Hmm.
where he gets into internal family systems or parts language, this kind of new, I wouldn't say fad in therapy, but it's just becoming a lot more well known, especially in Christian and Catholic circles. And his book is great. And I love his argument of like, we had it first, in the sense of, you got a St. Paul talking about, why do I do the things I don't want to do? St. Augustine
Uh,
writing St. Augustine writing about, why do I feel at war within myself and my members? Like, there are parts of us that by sin have become fragmented. And the journey of holiness is not perfection, but wholeness, of reintegration, of letting God bring these warring parts back together into this internal symphony that's playing together, instead of feeling like I'm always battling myself. And that journey of healing can take a long time. And that's why you need another trusted guide. And um, my first dean of men in the seminary loved to quote John 10:10. Uh, the devil, the enemy, only comes to steal and kill and destroy, but Jesus came that we may have life and life in abundance. And I spin it when I talk to teens and young adults that Jesus did not come to give us rules and regulations. He came to give us life and life in abundance, not just here's some coping mechanisms or strategies to white knuckle your way through life or life hack it. I've come to give you life and life in abundance. And that's what we're invited into. And to quote one of my heroes, John Paul II, be not afraid. Be not afraid to take that interior journey, to take risk. I meet a lot of Gen Z young men who are just afraid to take a risk, afraid of being imperfect. And so it's the analysis paralysis, and I'm just not going to make a decision. And it's existential, you know? Like, will I be okay if I take a step in that direction or that direction? If I ask that girl out, if I apply to that job, and it's like, yeah, you're going to be okay. And a lot of life is just screwing up. And that is life. You cannot stay in this little perfect box, which is kind of how we've been deformed by the internet. And it's just, we got to stay in the little thing of perfection, and afraid of making a mistake. It's like, no, no, no. Like, we have limitations as humans, and that's a good. And we frustrate ourselves when we rebel against our humanity.
hmm.
Jesus wants to do his job, which is to be a savior. So we can let him be a savior. We can let him be a healer, to where we can't heal ourselves.
So good. The part that stuck out to me there was actually you sharing how some people can just literally react to everything their whole life and just live in reaction mode and go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. I mean, I've definitely done that. I see friends going from skydiving to crocodile hunting to making a lot of money to this party to Coachella. You know, it's like we're looking for that peace that surpasses all knowledge. Um, but I love that. Yeah, we're not designed to rebel against our humanity.
Go
That's
deeper in, go deeper into it, which you need a guide because we're going to get in trouble for doing it alone. So to have a guide who is trusted in the ways of the Lord, who will be bold with us, who will love us enough to challenge us, and also allow us, will be receive us in our humanity. Like that's a priceless gift. If you can, if you know, God willing, you find a trusted friend or a spiritual director or a mentor that can help you get you from a certain point to a certain point. Because even Jesus allows Simon to help him carry his cross. Jesus himself embraces the weakness he takes on. He takes on our humanity and is not afraid to ask for help. Is not afraid to say, Peter, will you stay up with me for an hour? Will you stay awake with me? I mean, when friends call me late at night, it is tough because I'm like, but at the same time, it's like, who am I that I should get a late night call from this friend who's reaching out to me?
yeah. I've probably called you past your bedtime.
Oh yeah, and I'm up pretty late, but still, it's more of my introvert. I don't want to be bothered, but I know you're calling me at this time for a reason.
Yeah. Where can people find your mentor work and your books and your talks and lectures and all the things?
All the things. You can go to jackieandbobby.com, which is our hub where you'll have the books and some videos and the link to my own one-on-one mentorship for people that need help. They need some direction or just someone to accompany them. And yeah, my wife and I both come out of ministry, out of youth ministry, and we'll probably be doing some form of ministry until the day we die. So been great to meet you along the way, Andrew, and see your work and how you've been growing. Your picture is still on our wall, and as you sit in the baby pool with your shirt off, and
Can't believe you're referencing this on this show.
people
It's
do a
just,
double take and like, is that your kid? Like it's the adult son. I never asked for.
dude, I have had a nun come up to me and say, "Hey, I saw you on Jackie and Bobby's wall." And I'm like, "Oh, sister, I'm so sorry. I was just trying to get vitamin D and optimize my intracellular mitochondria and the melatonin in my mitochondria. Like, it's not that big a deal, you know."
That picture is load bearing now. It's been up there that long.
Gosh.
Can't
All
take
right,
it down.
what's the latest book you're working on right now? Are you working on a book or what's your latest book to come out?
When will this episode come out?
I have no idea.
Great. There's a book coming out. This is advanced knowledge, but in September, I wrote a Versati field guide, takes you through the life of Pier Giorgio in like an 8-day, very short kind of outdoor guide format. And Jackie and I wrote the John Paul II field guide, which is going to
Cool.
be coming out in September, leading up to his feast day in October. Short little wonderful read, takes you through the life of JP2 through Ave Maria Press.
That's awesome. We'll be on the lookout for that. Bobby, thanks for coming on. Go touch grass.
I will. Thank you, Andrew.